Thanks, Ruby. So, good morning, everybody, and hopefully over the next half hour, I'll do three things. I'll try to explain to you why digital evolution is happening now, and what are the priorities in digital evolution for so many of the CIOs around the world. I'll try and contextualize that a little bit for Hong Kong and the Hong Kong market. I'll then give a few examples that will hopefully inspire you and show what is possible with digital transformation, with the Internet of Things and related technologies. And then finally, I'll try and give just two or three really practical examples of how you can get started with your digital evolution, and what are some of the common pitfalls that colleagues in very many industries face as they attempt their digital transformation. And I think I'd like to start by just maybe getting some definitions out of the way, because we've heard today digital transformation, digital evolution, we've heard Industry 4.0 or 4.0, and we've spoken a lot about Internet of Things. To my mind, nobody buys the Internet of Things. They buy digital transformation, they buy a digital journey, they buy a solution to a business problem. And so that is typically what an organization is trying to do. They are trying to transform, and I'll talk a little bit later about why they're trying to transform. But the Internet of Things is one of those technology enablers that allows them to transform, allows them to create that value, either efficiency or new customer markets, or both, and I'll talk about those in a few moments. So the Internet of Things is just one technology enabler for digital transformation, alongside very many other important enablers, AI, blockchain, robotics, and what we're starting to see is a blurring at the edges of those four technologies and others. And so when I talk about some of the examples later, I'll talk about IoT, but you will see aspects of those other technologies in many of those solutions. So with that, let's think about why industry is transforming now. And it's always a dangerous game making predictions, but here are four predictions that I think are relatively safe to make over the next 10 or 20 years. Firstly, we are undergoing a period of profound technology change. And that is coming about because technology is so much cheaper than it has ever been before. Compute power, the cost of compute power has halved in the last 5 years. The cost of storage has fallen by tenfold. The cost of sensors have come down 100-fold in the last few years. And that is driving this pace of technological change to the point where we are seeing real breakthroughs in AI. And not just breakthroughs in AI in traditional blue-collar industries that are being replaced by robotics, but in white-collar jobs. So we are starting to see AI in accountancy, in law, in medicine. Now, that does leave an interesting societal problem, that if you automate away all of the junior accountants and all of the junior lawyers, where do you get all the senior accountants and senior lawyers from, who maybe are still doing those higher value human input, experiential-led capabilities? But we are seeing profound change there. And within 20 years or so, I think we will see 47% of jobs, and these are numbers from a survey we did, we will see 47% of jobs affected in some significant way by AI. I maybe not so keen on the idea of replacement, but augmentation. Jobs will change. We're seeing that at the same time that we're seeing over 50% of children born today will live over 100. We're seeing an aging population, partially driven by that, where in Japan, where my company is based, 51% of the working age population, the working age population in Japan, one of the top 5 economies in the world, will fall to 51%. It's currently 66% at the moment. So we are seeing a aging, increasing population with a declining number of people in the working population. And we're combining that with AI, and as Dr. Ong spoke about earlier, a rise in autonomous vehicles. So we are seeing huge societal changes. And those societal changes are percolating down into industrial changes as well. So when people ask, well, why is digital transformation important? It's important because fundamentally the society we live in is changing, and us as business leaders need to respond to that change. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, which is really about saying how do we transform industry, I'm much more enamored with the phrase that came out of the Japanese government earlier this year around Society 5.0, and we can keep adding .zeros to everything, but Society 5.0 is essentially saying, yes, the productivity benefits that we get from Industry 4.0 are incredibly important, but how do we harness that technology to meet societal challenges as well? So that's the big picture. Why do we need to transform? The second question is, well, if we've agreed we need to transform, what are the key drivers for doing that? Now, Ivan spoke earlier about that kind of and or approach of, is it increased revenue, or is it improved efficiency, or is it a combination of both? I think actually it spreads out a little bit more than that. We surveyed about 1,000 CIOs last year, and we found a quite multifaceted answer to what is driving your digital transformation. And you'll notice these numbers add up to significantly more than 100%. So we allowed people to say, actually, here are a number of factors that are driving my transformation. So yes, increased revenue, the most important factor in terms of what people are trying to do. But also significantly, almost half of those CIOs said, we're actually trying to improve customer relationships. We're trying to be a more experiential organization. We're trying to get down to hyper-personalization, as Ivan talked about, or as we would often say, lot size one. Industrial goods, but made for you. So that combination of artisanal scale, but also with the efficiencies of hyper-connected manufacturing. Also seeing strength and competitiveness of products, and I'll talk a little bit about that service transformation later. Transformed business models or processes. We have a customer who manufactures life jackets, and that's quite a stable business. They make life jackets for aircraft. How can they innovate that process? Well, what they've been able to do is, using technology, they can say, we're not going to just sell pallet loads of life jackets anymore. What we're going to sell to the airlines, to the aviation industry, is a guarantee that we will always have in-date, in-service life jackets under every seat on a plane. And you'll pay a per dollar, a number of dollars per month per life jacket for that service. That has a win for the business, because that business is able to turn a lumpy product-based revenue stream into a smooth services-based revenue stream. They also improve their margin at the same time. But the airlines also benefit because they don't have stock holding. They don't have sunk costs on their balance sheet. They don't need to have the organization to manage those products and get those to the right places. They can outsource all of that. So it really is creating a true win-win in those transformed business models. And then finally, yes, we are seeing internal benefits as well. 35% of these CIOs we're looking to see improved efficiency. And we are seeing truly phenomenal improved efficiency in many customers. And we're also looking to harness benefits internally as well, improved employee satisfaction, improved employee safety. And I'll talk about a little bit about that in a moment. So, to have a look at this from a Hong Kong perspective, I'm not an expert on Hong Kong. I flew in from London yesterday, but helpfully some of my colleagues from our Hong Kong office pulled together some numbers from the region. And what we're seeing in Hong Kong is a move from exploration to action. This is something that's reflected, I think, worldwide. Many, many customers have been dipping their toe in the water, have been running proof of concept, have been running proof of value tests, but they're now starting to get to scale. So we're seeing a large focus on cross-functional teams for digital transformation. We're seeing business units taking a more prominent role, and that's interesting. That's one, I think, the real transformational approach about IoT is often not in the hands of the CIO. I know it's predominantly CIOs in the audience here, and I'm sorry for that bad news, but the interesting thing, I went into a logistics company in the US about 18 months ago, and we were giving a final bid presentation around how they managed goods within their warehouse and services for their aircraft. And around that room, on that final presentation table, was, I think, 14 people, one of whom was from procurement, to keep us honest, one of whom was from IT. Every other person in that room making those decisions were operational. They were the station manager at an airport. They were the warehouse manager. They were the chief operating officer for that company. They were real management level staff who had come up through the blue collar operational side of their business. And we're seeing that more and more in every digital transformation project, but particularly in those harnessing IoT. And we're seeing a focus on data and data value, as we heard in the last talk. And we're seeing that joint funding of programs from both IT and the business units that are really harvesting the benefit. So let's think about what that really means in practice. What does digital transformation using IoT really mean in just one industry? And this is an industry that Dr. Ong talked about around autonomous driving. Often what we see within, or what we think about when we talk about IoT, is the narrow use case. Autonomous vehicles will get me more safely from A to B, maybe more quickly. I get to read a book on my commute. I don't have to worry about parking the car at the other end because someone will, because the car will find its own parking space. I think that's a very narrow view of the power of these technologies. What I think about when I think about this IoT revolution is actually all the knock-on effects that this has. So if I think of myself as a car driver, I have 5 or 6 relationships to be enabled to drive a car. I obviously have to buy a car, so I have a relationship with the manufacturer of that car. Often that relationship is one step removed. It's often very light touch. I might buy a car, own it for 3-4 years. I might hear from the manufacturer if there's a recall. I might do some updates to the satellite navigation system. But essentially, in between my first purchase and going to buy another car, they don't really engage with me. I might have a relationship with a dealer network who then service my car. I obviously do have a relationship with the government who license my car, license me to drive, tax my car, make sure it's roadworthy. I have a relationship with my insurance provider. I maybe have a relationship with a breakdown provider. I have a relationship with whoever provides the streaming media in my car. I have other relationships, a sat-nav provider, those kind of things, road tolls. So at the moment, I manage 6 or 7 of these relationships, and each of those people have their own role in the value chain, all directly to me as a consumer. The self-driving car actually totally revolutionizes that, because I will have one relationship. I will have a relationship with whatever that provider of that self-driving car is. Now, that might be the manufacturer themselves. It might be intermediaries such as car hire companies or taxi providers that we currently have. It might be other new entrants into the market. But essentially, everybody else in that value chain is going to be disrupted. The insurance industry, I think, will be maybe one of the most affected of all of them, because you're suddenly moving from a market where you have hundreds of millions, if not billions, of individual consumers that insurance industry is dealing with, to what, 4 or 5 major manufacturers in the world? Suddenly, the automotive insurance industry starts looking like the aviation insurance industry. My brother-in-law is in the aviation insurance industry, and I can tell you it looks very, very different to the consumer-driven industry that we have for automotive at the moment. So we're starting to see huge transformation not just within that ecosystem, but then spreading out into the metro transit authorities, into how we live and work day to day, effects in the logistics industry. Because suddenly, drivers aren't in the loop. Why is my truck only running for 8 hours a day, which is maybe what a driver can do? Suddenly we start having 24/7 logistics in a completely different way. So that disrupted value chain I'll just show as a video. And this disrupted value chain is illustrated by a product we have called Spatial. Now, I'm not going to talk much about the product, but what this allows us to do is to bring together data from very, very, very many sources in that disrupted ecosystem, and to say, what does that mean for society? And so here what we can see is a city in Japan, and we can see data from railways, from the highway, from the taxis, from city buses, and we can bring that together in a single platform to help decision makers. And this is an example of where IoT and AI blur, because what those decision makers can then start doing is saying, well, great, I've got all of this data from all these connected cars, from all these connected vehicles. What does that mean for me as a city planner? And what does that mean for you as a person using those transportation services? So for me as a city planner, I can look at recommendations. I don't just get deluged by this data. I can look at recommendations, and AI can start saying, actually, more buses here, fewer buses there. More taxis here, fewer taxis there. Immediate demand response to help me manage the city better. But also from a consumer, I can see personalized data about my journey, my day. So that might say take an autonomous vehicle from point A to point B, then get on the subway to complete your journey, because that's the most efficient route for you based on your individual parameters. Mobility as a service is one of those capabilities that can be unlocked. And that will be unlocked by a combination of 3 things. Bringing together infrastructure, so our roads, our railways, information, general information about what's going on in the city, weather, those kind of things, and people, the individual driver, the individual pedestrian, and hyper-localization for those services. Toyota were looking to launch a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, the first in Tokyo. Now, this presented a slightly chicken and egg problem for them. They wanted to launch this fuel cell vehicle, but consumers wouldn't adopt the fuel cell vehicle unless they could be they could be assured that they could get hydrogen in the locations where they were most likely to drive, and they weren't going to have to drive across the city to try and fill up this new vehicle. But the infrastructure providers had the opposite problem. They didn't want to invest in infrastructure if they didn't know where the drivers were. So by combining data from very, very many drivers, using this data platform to bring together information that we already had, that Toyota were already generating from other vehicles, they could help provide that information to infrastructure providers to plan better where that hydrogen infrastructure needed to be. But they could also make sure that when you were in a Toyota Mirai, you could be assured by connecting to the in-car entertainment system that you were always within range of 2 or 3 hydrogen filling stations. You could see that right on the dashboard. And so that allowed a really innovative product to hit the market because it helped break that chicken and egg cycle of infrastructure investment and consumer adoption. And so I see that as an example of those connected services paradigms that we talk about. So wherever you start in this process, you collect data, you can analyze that data, you turn it into value, you control that, you connect it, and you start again. And we're continually evolving the value that we create with these systems. And so that's why at the start I said that IoT is just one part of this value chain, is because without the other parts of it, without the security, without the network, without AI and analytics, we're unable to extract the real value from IoT and digital transformation that we want. So some other examples of this. This is a shopping mall in Singapore. And this shopping mall sits between an entertainment venue above and a transport hub below. The challenge is, and I'm sure we've all been to concerts where you get out of the concert, you've had a great evening, and then you kind of hit a wall of people all trying to get on the same public transport services. So the question that we were asked is, well, how do you fix that? How do you incentivize people to change their behavior based on real knowledge of where they're going? And so those dots that you saw moving around on screen a few moments ago showed people being incentivized to go into the shopping mall instead of straight to the transportation hub. We could connect to their smartphones, to their tickets, to know where they were going home to, or where they were planning to go home to, and to say, your train is busy, here's a coupon to go and have a coffee or have a drink at a local bar. Your service is empty, you should carry on straight home and beat the rush. And so providing personalised services that benefit the venue because their customers have a better experience, benefit the transport hub, benefit the consumer, and benefit the stores in the retail mall. And that is an example of those digital ecosystems that we can create with these kinds of technologies. Another example is maritime port optimization. So you can see some vessels in the Strait of Malacca here. You can see the one ringed in red and the one ringed in orange, and they're about to collide into each other, which is a non-optimal solution. So we've been working with a research institute in Singapore, A-Star, to help them provide better solutions to management in the Straits of Malacca. So this is using IoT, transponders on vessels, along with AI to help optimize transportation routes within the Strait, and with all these little moving dots to help predict movements and guide vessels to avoid accidents. And this has been greatly successful, and we can certainly in a port city like Hong Kong see value there as well. And finally, I wanted to come to to two last examples of transformation. So firstly is on the efficiency side. This is a customer in Shanghai called Anessa. They're a manufacturer. And they were already a modern factory. They already had very high efficiency. They already had a very engaged workforce. But they really struggled to have real-time visibility across their factory to really understand what was going on a moment-by-moment basis. And so we worked with them to help them solve that challenge. And they had a very simple thing. They wanted to be able to improve their efficiency. And what we enabled them to do is have true visibility on every 45 seconds of exactly what was going on in every machine across their factory, to identify micro stops in their production lines. And through this, they were able to respond to incidents in their factory immediately and improve efficiency as the day went on, rather than waiting till the end of the day and saying, how did our day go, how can we do things better tomorrow? So that philosophy of Kaizen taken to its extreme of really being able to improve the factory minute by minute. And even in a modern factory like Anessa's, we're able to see a 25% operational improvement, operational efficiency improvement as we conducted this project. And they reduced their factory downtime by 50%. So the opportunity here for operational excellence through the IoT is truly staggering. We're a manufacturer in our own right. We use these technologies in our factories across Japan and Europe, and we're also working with partners such as Intel in their Penang factory to improve their efficiency as well. So that's on the efficiency side, which is very important. But then let's finally talk about another customer, this one, Optex, and their quest to move from a product manufacturer to a services provider. So Optex make water quality meters. Not the most exciting business in the world, but an important one. And they wanted to move up the value chain. They wanted to have a much better connection with their customers and provide added value to their customers. So they said to us, how can we move from being a manufacturer to a services company? What they did is they built on our technology a platform that enabled their customers to interact with their water meters real time and see that data coming off those water quality sensors in an application. This allowed them to move up that value chain, deliver added value to their customers, sell that as a service rather than a product, and change the way they interacted with the world. And that's hugely beneficial for them. They were able to do that in just a few months by using connected technologies. And there are examples across all of these industries, from financial technology, where we're seeing the rise of insurers using predictive maintenance to help reduce the cost of insuring large power plants and turbines. We're seeing this in manufacturing, as I've already talked about. If you visit the exhibition hall after this session, you'll see some of our wearable technologies that we're using to help improve workplace safety. So I hope that's inspired you to see what the potential of the Internet of Things can do. So I'll leave you with three things to think about as practical steps to get started on the journey. First one is to think small. To start with a specific problem that you can easily define and move forward from there. The second one is to focus on value, because unless you are measuring the expected outcome, the expected benefit you'll get from that solution, you won't get past the pilot stage. And thirdly is to then conversely think big. When you design your first project, you need to design it to scale. Because one of the biggest obstacles we see, and Dr. Ong mentioned this in terms of a security challenge, is if you design your proof of concept to be throwaway, it will be throwaway. You need to start small with a specific business problem, but design it in such a way that it can scale when you make it big. So with that, I'd encourage you, if you want more information on any of the case studies I've talked about today, it's in the Technology and Services vision that's on your table, and please visit us out in the exhibition hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bailey.